Hello everybody, my name is Allison, and if you're new to my channel, welcome. I write YA dark fantasy and I talk about books here. So I had this burning desire, and when Allie gets a burning desire to talk about something, it's the only thing she could think of for weeks. I've literally had this burning passion to talk about it for like months, and I've just kept silent. I've talked to people in my like real life about it, but I haven't talked to the internet about this. And I finally put out a poll on Twitter, which I'll put on the screen, and it was like 96% of people wanted to hear my thoughts about this. And yeah, so today I'm going to be talking about YA movies and the critics. I feel like this is gonna be like very controversial, and I'm nervous. But I have three disclaimers, and they're just kind of short. First one is I was actually a film student. I did a lot of film classes, so I know how to pick apart a movie. I know how to analyze a movie, and I know how to look at it in a critical way. So just disclaimer on that. I do know a little bit about what I'm talking about. I took college classes. I was studying this, but I changed my major later on. But I took like 3 or 4 like critical analysis classes for film in my college year. The second disclaimer is this is no way bashing anybody who is a critic or anyone who knows a critic. This is just some thoughts and feelings about YA books and how they're criticized in our culture. So this is just my thoughts and opinions, but I really do value critics' opinions. And then the third disclaimer is this is no way bashing authors either, about giving their work to Hollywood producers or anything like that. I actually think that the authors are a little bit victim to being kind of screwed over when this happens. And I'll give like specific examples. The first thing I want to talk about is the categorizing of YA movies. So there is this recent thing, and it's been going on for a long time, and I just recently noticed it, but I've noticed it with multiple YA adaptations. And I'm just gonna get right into that. First thing is, if you have a sci-fi or a dystopian novel adaptation, it is automatically going to be compared to The Hunger Games. Which, fine. I love The Hunger Games. I love the movies. I love the books. I think that they were wonderfully made. But they're not perfect. They're not perfect YA movie adaptations. They're not just like, here's the book on screen. Like, no, that's not how it works. But they were entertaining and they were good films. But The Hunger Games did not start a dystopian like world. Like, it wasn't like, oh my gosh, this is the first thing. I also don't understand why sci-fi is like squished into that world. I don't know. It's just, I don't understand that like critics' ideas of being like, oh, this is sci-fi, so it's automatically going to be categorized with the dystopians, and everything is going to go up to the Hunger Games. I can't wrap my brain around that. I don't get it. And if someone could like explain why that is, I understand. It was a very successful movie franchise, but there are other successful dystopian movie franchises other than the Hunger Games. And I don't think that we should be comparing all dystopian and all sci-fi movie adaptations in the YA genre to the Hunger Games. I don't understand. I'll get into more examples of that later, but yeah, that is one of the categories. And the second category is any supernatural being, whether that's vampires, werewolves, fairies, witches, any kind of like supernatural occurrence or anything like that is always compared to Twilight, which, again, I'm Twilight trash. But those movies aren't like the like a most amazing thing on earth. Like, yes, I love the Twilight movies. I think that I love them because I loved Twilight and I loved just everything. But honestly, I can sit and make fun of the Twilight movies for hours. It's my favorite thing to do, to pick apart the Twilight movies, because it's just so much fun to me. But I don't understand, and also supernatural beings like aren't compared to like the Harry Potter franchise a lot of the times in reviews. I've noticed this. I don't know why that is, because it is like a giant franchise. There's a lot of supernatural witches, centaurs, just like a bunch of stuff in the Harry Potters, but they're kind of just like its own thing, which, and go for it. Harry Potter is the best thing on planet Earth to me, 24/7. So like, just leave that alone. But yeah, anything supernatural gets combined into Twilight, and I don't understand. So now that you know like the categories that I've noticed in reviews, and like I've noticed these in multiple reviews, not just one, not just two, like 45. Like I will go on to a Rotten Tomatoes, because I like to know the Rotten Tomatoes score, but I don't base my judgment of Rotten Tomatoes on the movie. If I enjoy the movie, I enjoy the movie. That's just my opinion. But a lot of times they will tank the movie, and then in the description, or like the, like if you scroll down, there's like the reviews, but they only give like a snippet of the review. It's all about like, for example, I just watched The Fifth Wave, which I haven't read the full Fifth Wave book. I've read most of it, and I felt like I knew most of the story from the parts I have read. I had to give the book back to my library. I like read half of it, and then I was going on vacation, and I had to give it back so I didn't get a late fee. So I never like picked it back up. I have the books here. I'm going to read them. Just a disclaimer. But I really enjoyed the movie. And I've talked to people who have enjoyed the movie as well, who have read the books, but these scores on Rotten Tomatoes, honestly, one of them said, just a cheap ripoff of The Hunger Games. Do you know what you're watching? Do you understand that The Hunger Games is a dystopian world where people are sending children into the arena to kill one another for their entertainment, while The Fifth Wave is a sci-fi end-of-the-world movie where children are fighting for their lives, children and teens. I just don't see the connection. I understand. The Hunger Games was the last big thing. It really was. I haven't seen the Hunger Games, like, phenomenon, or like the Twilight phenomenon, where so many people are so excited for so long, and why fiction, as in like a series. There's always wonderful like standalone movies like Love, Simon, The Hate U Give. Those are the only two I can think of right now because they are the last two that I saw, but you get the point. And also another thing, okay, this made me cackle. I was looking at The Giver, the adaptation that recently came out, like the most recent one. It came out in like 2014, 2015, sometime over there. I enjoyed The Giver adaptation. I thought it was good. I really liked The Giver book, and I thought that adaptation did well for me. Like, I enjoyed it, and I thought it entertaining. And someone compared The Hunger Games to The Giver. I get it. You're making the connection. This is a dystopian. Here's another dystopian. Automatically, they're exactly the same. But The Giver came first. The Giver is like a Nobel Prize, I think it's Nobel Prize winner. It was published like a long time ago. If anything, The Hunger Games is like The Giver. Do you see my frustration over here? I don't understand. And I haven't even gotten into like critics, like why my whole question about this, why the first movie of a series always tanks because of the critics. I want to give another example. I went and watched The Darkest Minds movie adaptation in theaters. I loved it. I did not let anyone's opinions. I actually saw it the day before it came out because it was like, at my Harkins you can sometimes see movies the day before because they don't do a midnight premiere anymore, yada yada yada. But I watched it. I posted a whole Instagram story about it saying I loved it. It was so good. And the author of The Darkest Minds, Alexander Bracken, actually messaged me and was like, thank you so much for talking about it. If you could go give it a Rotten Tomatoes audience review, because the critics are just like on it right now. And I was like so flabbergasted. I was like, this was a fun movie. You had kids with powers who like did a bunch of crazy like effects, and I thought it was great. And I was like, yeah, it's not like the books. It's not entirely the books, but you know what? I'm okay with that. I loved the casting. I loved the ideas that they did take. There's a couple things I didn't like, but overall I really enjoyed the movie. And I think that's because I have grown to differentiate a book from its movie. If I just smash them together, and I will be disappointed in them because they do take liberties to change them, but I just really am the kind of person that like separates them. So I will enjoy the movie and I will enjoy the book. Totally fine. And I was so surprised that they were tanking this movie. I was like, what? Excuse me? Like, I thought it was good. Everyone I've spoken to thought it was good. The audience review is really good. But the problem is, the only thing that like the viewer sees, like when you go to rent it, is the critics like Rotten Tomatoes. I know on Apple TV you can give it a star, but like when I look at stuff, I see the Rotten Tomatoes score because it's like this giant vomit on the screen, or a tomato. But I was flabbergasted. And you know what they compared it to? The Hunger Games. Is that all they have to compare it to now? I'm going to move on past my example. The question I have given out is, why do I think that movies do not have a chance to get a second adaptation in the series? Because of critics. And like I said, this is no way bashing critics or anything like that. I just think that there's some things in the movie culture that could be changed, and especially in the YA movie culture. The YA movie culture. And that would be, I don't know because I don't know these people, but a lot of the reviews I have seen on Rotten Tomatoes, because Rotten Tomatoes is like the holier than thou in the movie industry, I guess. I don't know. But like it seems like it puts like a lot of like pressure on a movie. Is that a lot of these people are older people. I'm not gonna name ages because I think that's rude, but older men and women who don't read YA fiction. Let me preface that. They do not read YA fiction. That might not be true for every single person who is reviewing these movies, but it's generally speaking, it seems like these people aren't reading the material, which is frustrating. If I was a movie critic and I was going to see a movie adaptation to review the movie of this adaptation that this author has written a story about, don't you think that you would read the story beforehand? Don't you think you would listen to an audiobook of the story to understand what you're going into, what you're looking at as a reader of the audience? I understand not everyone is readers, people just go see movies, but honestly I feel like the people who just go see the movies really enjoy the movies. really enjoy The Fifth Wave, really enjoy The Darkest Minds, even if they haven't read the book, because it's entertaining. But I feel like when you don't read the source material, you're doing an injustice to the review, if that makes sense. I feel like as a critic, you should read the source material so you can be like, oh, this is the fan base I am walking into. I would never, as a critic, walk into, let's just use Harry Potter. When Harry Potter first came out, I would have never walked into a movie to review without reading the source material. I think that is just crazy. I think that you should be able to know what you're getting into, and especially in YA fiction, because I feel like YA fiction just gets like all the time. Any single movie, they're just like, move along, move along, move along. Like, it's not stimulating to them because they don't know the world. They don't know these characters. They don't understand why it's so exciting to see these characters on screen, because they're not Katniss Everdeen. Sorry, we're not all Katniss Everdeen. So I think that's a big thing, is I think critics need to start reading the source material to understand the story, and maybe their view on the movies would be fine. Also, my other suggestion, stop comparing everything to the Hunger Games. Stop comparing everything to Twilight. There are other things in the world. The book community has moved way past those books. We still love them. We still think they're great, specifically the Hunger Games. Some people don't think Twilight's that great, but you know, I'm on board of go Twilight. So, but there's different books now, and I feel like we're doing an injustice to these, even if we're buying tickets. I feel like we could be buying 1 million tickets, and these critics are just like, well, it's just another teen dystopian that's trying to be the Hunger Games. So I feel like I've rambled on for long enough. If you'd like to talk about your opinions on this, let me know down in the comments below. I'm really interested to know other people's opinions on why YA book to movie adaptations that are a series don't get a second movie. I'm really interested because I never see people talk about this, and I don't understand. So if you want to talk about it down below, just be kind. Don't start rifts. Don't be rude. Have a kind heart when you're typing on the computer, and just start a adult conversation down below. I'd love to talk about it, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you have any questions for me or any suggestions on book to movie adaptations I should watch, let me know down below as well, and I will see you next time. Bye!